Hello beautiful people, welcome back to Marion Crochets. In this video I will show you how I made the dress that I wore to the Osona Yarns yarn tasting festival that happened here in Nairobi. This is how I styled it, and these are some of my friends and how they rocked their outfits on that day. Enjoy the video. It is a simple dress and very easy to construct. It is measurement based, and also feel free to subscribe to the channel, like and share the video. Welcome. So these are the materials that we are going to be using during this tutorial. I have my pair of scissors that I'll use to cut the hanging threads, and I will use this darning needle to weave in ends. I have some stitch markers. You need at least 2 to mark your stitches here and there as you work through your project. For my yarn, I am using seagull yarn, and this is 4-ply. This yarn is 100% acrylic, and one ball is 50 grams. Now, since it is very thin, I am going to be doubling the strands to achieve medium weight. So if you have any DK weight, I recommend that you use that. You can use any other type of yarn. I have 100% acrylic. So yeah, and for this I'm going to be using a 3.5 millimeter crochet hook as my hook of the day. Now this is my measuring tape. It is very important and you need it to work through this project, okay? You need your measuring tape all through. And these are the measurements that we are going to be using. You need your shoulder to shoulder measurements, and for me, I'll be using 16 inches. I'm making this dress specifically for myself. My bust is 34 inches. My bodice, this is the measurements from the shoulder all the way to the waist at the navel area. So my bodice is 17 inches. The waist is 28. My hips is 38 inches. And the dress length, I am going to construct it from my shoulder all down. It's going to be 33 inches. I don't want a really long dress, but this is subjected to your measurements. You can get that. Mine is going to be around 32, 33 inches. For the sleeves, I had intended to do a long sleeve, but in the end I changed my mind to short sleeves. But if in case you would want to do a long sleeve, it should be 23 inches long and 15 inches wide. Shoulder to shoulder measurements, I will minus 2, so I'm going to be using 14 inches to achieve that perfect fit on the shoulder. I don't want my dress to be hanging on the shoulder. I just want it to sit right there. So I will take the 16 inches and then minus 2. So I'll be using 14 inches. But the rest of the measurements will just remain the same. And stay tuned as I take you through the construction of this dress. You are going to get your hook and your yarn and make a slip knot. This is how I make my slip knot. Once you have your slip knot, we are going to be working this dress from top to bottom. So the first measurement that you need is that shoulder to shoulder measurement, and you are going to chain a chain long enough to achieve that shoulder to shoulder minus 2 inches. So mine is 14, so I'm going to be chaining, yarn over, pull through the hook, the loop that you just constructed, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, and I'm going to make this, to chain this until I have 14 inches. So as you do this, make sure that you are counting, because we are going to be making this dress in panels. And since we are making it in panels, you need to do a mirror, like the same thing you do for this. The same thing you do for this panel is the same thing that you do on the other panel. So we're going to be counting our stitches. Make sure to count until you get to the end. And as you count, you also measure. So I have my 14 inches, as you can see here. I'm not stretching my yarn, I'm not stretching my work, but this is what I have at the moment. So once you have that, you are going to, since we have our foundation chain, the next part that we're going to do is work a double crochet, okay? And to work a double crochet, we are going to yarn over, count 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and in the 4th, we are going to insert our hook, yarn over, pull through. You have 3 on your hook, like this, and then you're going to yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through the next 2. So yarn over and insert your hook in the next stitch, yarn over, pull through. You have 3 on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Let's do that again. You're going to yarn over, insert your hook in the next stitch, like that, yarn over, you have 3, pull through, and you have 3 on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and I'm going to do this until I get to the end of the row. So I'll be putting a stitch at a time until I get to the end of this row. I just completed my first row, and you will notice that the stitches that you have on the first row are 2 less than the foundation chain. For example, I did 72 for my chain, and right now I am having 70 stitches. So 72 minus 70, okay, 72 minus 2, you get 70. So I have 70 stitches here, and we need to maintain the number for the next row. So what I'm going to do is I am going to chain 2, and then I will turn my work, and on this second stitch I'm going to go in with a double crochet, and then I go to the next stitch with a double crochet. So we're going to be placing a double crochet on top of each and every double crochet without skipping any. So once you're done with your first row, you chain 2, turn your work, and then start working a double crochet on top of each and every double crochet. By the end of the row, you should have an equal number as the first row. For me, I will have 70 stitches, okay? So you're going to work this until you get to the end of the row, and we shall meet there. Now I have 2 stitches remaining, and I'm going to work a double crochet on top of each and every one of them. And this last stitch is the turning chain that we did. So on top of that turning chain, we are also going to work a double crochet in there. So at this point, we still have our 70 stitches, and now I am going to start my next row, which is the 3rd row. And on this 3rd row, we are going to start increasing, and we will be increasing at the beginning of each and every row. Okay, Remember, right now we are still working. We still have the shoulder to shoulder measurements -2. Mine is 14. For some people it might be different, like as compared to the bust measurement. As you can see, I'm working down. My bust measurement is 34, and if I happen that, considering we are working in panels, if I happen my shoulder measurements, my bust measurements, that is, I will get 17 inches. Okay, so this is 34 divided by 2, because we are working in panels. I get 17 inches. So we are going to be working with this 17. So from 14, we are going to be increasing until we hit the 17 inches. And the increases are going to happen at the beginning of each and every row. So once you chain your 2, you're going to turn over your work, and now we are working on this 3rd row, and you will insert your hook right here at the beginning on this very first stitch. That is where you will put your hook, on the first stitch, and then do a double crochet. And now we are going to be working a double crochet on top of each and every stitch. So our increases are going to be happening on this first stitch, where instead of just having the chain 2, we will now chain 2 and then insert a stitch there to make them 2. So we have 2 stitches in this first stitch, and then a stitch on each and every stitch until we get to the end. So at the end of this, I will have 71 stitches instead of 70. Okay, so now I'm going to work double crochets until I get to the end of the row. So when you get to the end, don't forget this stitch on top of that chain 2 that we do at the beginning of each row. It's important. And then we are going to chain 2, turn our work, and as we did on the other side, we are also going to increase on this side, and we're doing that at the beginning of the row. And then we continue working a stitch in each and every, on top of each and every stitch. And at this point, for me, I am going to have 72. In the previous row had 70. Okay, the previous one had 71, sorry, not 70. So we are increasing this, as a row increases, we increase a stitch. Okay, so let me continue working this. And now these increases are going to be happening at the beginning of each and every row until you hit that bust measurement. As we progress downwards, my bust is going to be 17, so I'm going to work as I measure until I have 17 inches. So I've been increasing, and I increased on 1, 2, 3, on 6 rows, so that is a total of 6 stitches. And at the moment I have 17 inches without stretching, remember. So we have gone up to around 17 inches. So this is going to fit perfectly on me. And now I'm going to do a few rows without increase, just chaining 2, turning, and going on top of the next stitch without increasing. So we're going to do a stitch on each and every stitch as we retain the number that we have from the previous row. So we've been working with the bust measurement for a total of 5 inches. These are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are 12 rows, but this number is different for you. Remember, we are working with our own measurements, and at this point I will encourage you to be putting your dress on your body and just try to trace where the progress is leading, because before we start reducing to get to the bust measurements, we need to have covered, we are reducing towards the waist measurement. We need to have covered the bust completely so that the fitting is not so ill. We need this part should cover your bust area completely. So put it against your body as you work downwards. Now I'm going to start reducing because I want to go and hit my waist measurement, which is 28 divided by 214. So I want to start reducing. Remember, at this point I am at 17 inches. This is 17 inches. I want to reduce until I get to 14 inches, and that 14 will be my waist. And remember also, as we are going downwards, we are also working towards the bodies. My bodies is going to be around 16, almost 17 inches. So as I go down, I need to be measuring that, and by the time I get to the bodies, I have my bodies, I'll have already attained the waist measurements. So I'm going to chain 2, and we are now starting to reduce. So you're going to yarn over, insert your hook in the next stitch, yarn over and pull through 2. You have 2 on your hook, yarn over and go into the next, yarn over and pull through. As you can see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 on my hook, yarn over and pull through 2. I have 3 on my hook. I am going to yarn over and pull through them all like that. So this just shows that we have reduced this part from 2 stitches to 1, and I'm going to put 1 stitch in each and every stitch until I complete the row, and then when we are starting the next row, we will also reduce. So this means we are reducing at the beginning of each and every row until we have that 14 inches. And for you, you're reducing until you have your measurements. Always work with your measurement. This is just a guide. Okay, so let me put a stitch marker here to mark that this is where we are starting to reduce from, so that when I'm working the next panel, I am sure of the numbers. I have completed the first row where we are reducing, and now I want to start the next row. We said we are simply chaining 2, turning our work, and then we are going to yarn over, insert our hook in the next stitch, yarn over and pull through. You have 3, yarn over, pull through 2, leaving 2 on your hook, and then yarn over and insert your hook in the next stitch, yarn over and pull through 2, pull through. You have 4 on your hook. You're going to yarn over and pull through 2. This means you remain with 3 on your hook, and then you're going to yarn over and pull through them all to reduce these 2 stitches into 1. And now I'm going to work by placing a single stitch on top of each and every stitch from the previous row. Okay, so I'm going to do this until I get to the end. Now getting to this end, you will notice that this is the stitch that we reduced. So we are treating it as 1 stitch because it is. So I'm going to go on top of it and work just one double crochet and then complete my work on top of that chain 2 by working a double crochet. So we reduced here previously and now we have reduced on this other side. Remember, we are reducing on the onset of each and every row. So at the beginning of the row, that's when we reduce, but towards the end we are not reducing. So I'm going to chain 2 and then reduce. Remember, we are reducing at the beginning of the row. So I reduce and then I continue working the rows, the stitches on this row until I get to the end of the row. Okay, now since I've showed you that we are reducing at the beginning of each and every row and not at the end, you're going to do so as you monitor your stitches and your measurements. As soon as you hit your waist measurements, you're going to stop reducing, and then you can work and complete that by working down towards your body's measurements. So I'm going to do so off camera until I get to my waist measurements, and then I work further to hit my body's measurements, and then now we will meet up and start working towards the hips. So I have been reducing, and at this point I'm down to 15 inches. I am gonna leave this at 15 because you know we also need an allowance of an inch or two. My waist is 28, but I will leave it at 15. I reduced for a total of 16 rows, and these 16 rows are giving me my work at the moment is 14.5. I'm going to stop reducing from there, but since my body is supposed to be around 16 inches, I'm going to put in a few rows without the increases, and then from there, once I hit my body's measurements, from there I will start working the increases for the waist, for the hips, from the waist to the hips. Okay, so I'm going to continue working without decreasing as we've been doing before. I've worked 2 rows of no decreases, and now I am ready to start increasing towards the hip measurements. And to increase, we are going to be yarning over and inserting an extra stitch on this very first double crochet. We do an extra stitch there to mark our increases, and I have put a slip stitch right here to indicate that this is where we are starting our increases. Okay, for when I'll be working the next panel, I really need to do everything that I have done on this panel so that my work is even. So I'm going to be working these increases at the beginning of each and every row. There is our first increase. Okay, you can actually see the curvature is there. Just remember, our increase point is at the beginning of each and every row. But if there are those people who have extremely narrow waists and extremely wide hips, if that's your case, then you can increase your yours to at the beginning and at the end of each and every row. But for me, I know for a fact that my waist and my hip is not very different. Like my waist is 28 and my hip is 38. So a difference of 10 inches can be achieved in just a couple of rows by increasing at one point, that is at the beginning, but you can increase those points to 2 at the beginning and at the end of the row. So just remember, we are placing that first stitch on top of this very first stitch here so that they have 2 instead of 1, and then you continue working. So I'm going to be increasing like this until I hit my hip measurements, and I will stop and now continue working to complete the length of the dress. I will show you that in a couple of. I went ahead to keep increasing and I have hit my hip measurement, which is 19. You don't have to do this as exact measurement. You remember, this is going to loosen up, and now just make sure you give it a light stretch to ensure that everything is in place. You can see the curvature that is forming at the moment where we have increased and where we decreased before. Now I'm going to work down until I get to the length of the dress. At this moment, I have achieved the length of the dress that is right for me, which is 30 inches at the moment, but we will add a row at the neck area where I will show you how we are going to shape the neck area, the cutout, and then also once we are done, we will add another row of scallop at the bottom, so that will give us around 32-33 inches, which is a nice length. So we're going to shape the neck area, and looking from my work here, I have already worked the cutout where my work is around 16 inches. It did increase a little bit, stretching. So I will cut out 4 inches for the shoulder on one side and 4 inches for the shoulder on the other side. And then the remaining part in the middle is around 8 to 9 inches, which is not so bad because that is workable. Now we are going to transfer this information to the other panel because everything has to mirror up. And for this, I am just going to count the number of stitches and transfer that to this. I did 18 stitches on both sides, so I will use my stitch markers to mark 18 stitches on both sides, okay? So you mark 18 here, you mark with a stitch marker according to your measurements. Mine is 4 inches, and 4 inches constitutes over 18 stitches, okay? So I'm marking 18 stitches on each side, and then we will measure that and see how exactly this panel is measuring up, okay? So as you can see here, the mid part is 8 inches and the sides are 4 inches each, which is good because the stitches are the same for both panels. So we're going to insert our hook on this side and make 18 stitches. So I will make a slip knot and try tighten up those strings, and then I will make 2 double crochets on each and every double crochet from the previous row. And then once I have 18, I will come and work 18 more on the other side, leaving a strip of 9 inches in the middle or 8 inches in the middle. So the 2 that we have just constructed are the parts that we will use to join up the seams at the shoulder. Now, once you have the 18 stitches on each side constructed, we are going to use single crochets to make our shoulder seam. And now I'm going to pull that loop from the other end towards me, all through this other panel towards me, and then I chain one. And after that, we are going to turn our work, and we will be passing our hook through the loops on this panel towards the loops on the next panel, and then you pull a loop through them all and make a single crochet. And we're going to make these single crochets until you have 18 of them to cover that shoulder seam. Once you're done, we are going to make single crochets all around the neck area. This is where our neck will be. This is where our head is going to pass through. So we're going to chain one and then work 2 single crochets at that row, and then when we get to this part, we are going to be putting a single crochet on top of each and every stitch. Okay, so on the sides where we have those 2 rows, we will place in 2 single crochets, but on top here, like the part that I'm working, we are going to be putting a single crochet on top of each and every stitch. Just ensure that your work is neat, and once you're done, your shoulder seam should be looking like this and your neck area should be shaped. Now we are going to work on the side seams, and remember we are working on the wrong side, yeah? So you're going to mark where you want your armhole, how long you want your armhole. Mine is 7 inches, and that is where I have marked. And now we're going to work a row of single crochets on the sides from the bottom all the way up to where we have marked, and that will be our side seam. I'm going to insert my hook on this side and pull that loop towards me. And once I have that, I will chain one and then turn my work, okay? Upon turning, we are going to be inserting 2 single crochets in each and every row. Remember, right now we are working in rows and we are working on the wrong side. The right sides are facing and we are working on the wrong side. We're going to be inserting 2 single crochets on each and every row. So every row gets, make sure your work is aligned, and give it 2 single crochets in each and every row. So we are going to work this stitch until we get to where we have marked with that stitch marker, and this is going to be on both sides. Remember, we worked in panels, and make sure your work is very aligned so that it comes out neatly. So we'll do that, and I'm going to do it off camera. Once you're done with the side seam, this is how your dress should be appearing. This is the right side, and this is how the wrong side looks like. This is the seam that we just constructed, and this is how the right side looks like, okay? So I have done one of the sleeves. I ended up changing the sleeve design because it is very hot right now and a long sleeved won't suffice. So I'm gonna just work this 1 2 3 4 rows on the sleeve, and I will show you how to do that. Now you will grab your yarn and then make a slip knot, okay? And then insert at this point where you stopped at, when making the side seam. And then we are going to tighten the yarn and chain 2. Then now you're going to go into the next row here and work 2 double crochets. Then go into the next row and work 2 double crochets. Go into the next row here and work 2 double crochets. So I'm going to be working 2 double crochets in each and every row until I get to the peak of the shoulder. So once you are at the shoulder, this is the shoulder seam here, we're going to work these 2 double crochets in this row, and then skip the shoulder seam and go to the other side and work 2 double crochets in that row like that, and continue working those 2 double crochets until I get to the part where we started from. So I'm going to place 1 in this very first row that you completed your shoulder seam, and then we are going to slip stitch on that first double crochet that we did. It was a chain 2 actually, and then chain 2. We're not going to turn our work, we will just be working in rounds, and then I start working my double crochets from that very first stitch. So we're going to be placing 1 double crochet on top of each and every double crochet until we complete the row. So I've come towards the end of the row, and I'm going to slip stitch on the chain 2 that we did, and then chain 2 and start working the next row. And on this third row we are going to do something different. At the peak of the shoulder we will reduce in 3 stitches so that the sleeve is perfectly fitting on the shoulder. Okay, so I will show you how we're gonna do that in a few. So I'm left with 1, 2, 3 stitches to get to the shoulder seam, and I'm going to start reducing here. So 1, 2, and then you pull through them all, just how we usually reduce in double crochets, where you yarn over, insert your hook in the next stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, you yarn over, go into the next stitch, pull through, you have 4 on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, you have 3 on your hook, yarn over, pull through them all. So at this point we have reduced 1, 2, 3 stitches, and this just helps you shape your sleeve. So from this point I'm going to work by putting a stitch on top of each and every stitch until I get to the seam. So we're done with the 3 rows, and the next thing we need to do is work a row of single crochets to finish our work. So I'm going to chain 1 and then go into that stitch, yarn over and pull through. You have 2 on your hook, yarn over and pull through them all. Insert your hook, pull through, you have 2, yarn over, pull through, and I'm going to do this all around. It gives it a very beautiful finish so that your work is held together. So once you have that done, it's okay to cut your yarn after chaining one here, and then we will weave in that later. So this is what your sleeve should be looking like. Okay. So now the next part that we are going to be working is the hem of the dress, where we will put a row of I had actually worked it before. I just undid it right now to show you how to go about it. We're going to do the scalloped edge. I find it so beautiful, and it gives your dress a perfect finish. So as always, we are going to insert our yarn by making a slip knot and sliding it here and tightening our yarn, and then you will chain 2. Okay, now you're going to count 1, 2, and in the third we are going to work 6 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then you count 2 stitches, 1, 2. In the third, we are going to insert our hook, yarn over and pull through, and make a single crochet. And then we're going to count 1, 2, and in the third, we will do a scallop. So we are placing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then in the next stitch, we are going to place a single crochet, and then we count, we are counting 2, and then in the third we place a single crochet, and then you count 2, skip them, go into the third and do a shell. You can also call them shells. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then you count 1, 2, skip those, go into the third and do a single crochet. I'm going to work this off camera until I get to this point where we will complete together. So we're just counting 1, 2, in the third we place the 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then we skip 1, 2, do a single crochet in the next, like that. So I'm going to continue working this until I get to the end of the row, which will be right here. So I'm going to work my very last shell in this stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the last one, 5. And then I will slip stitch on the chain 2 that we started with. Slip stitch, actually we will slip stitch right here, and then chain 1 and cut our yarn, because at this point we are done. Now this is how your dress should be appearing on the brim. At this point we are done, but I find it wise to get a different color of yarn. So I will still use this seagull, but in a lighter shade of blue, to work the cord that I used to tie at the back and bring that beautiful detail, because in crochet it's all about details. So I will use 3 strands and work a chain long enough to tie at the back. So this is how we are going to lace the cord. As you can see, I'm trying to crisscross them so that the design is pretty. You can do this as many times as you want, but I think I'm going to stop here. 1, 2, 3. This will help your dress sit perfectly on your waist and also shape it for you. So yeah. So this is how the dress looks like in the end. I am so pleased with the detail that I added of this chain. It gives it a beautiful finish and an excellent look to it. So I'm gonna put it on a mannequin and we just get to see an overview of how everything looks like. Okay. This is how the dress looks like on the mannequin, and this is how I styled and rocked it on the runway, and it was a fantastic day. If you were there at the festival, please give me a shout out on the comment section below, and I'm going to tag Osonayans and we will leave their link in the description box so that you can go see how everyone else rocked their outfits. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Marion. Please do subscribe to my YouTube channel so that I can bring you more tutorials like this.